Hello, and welcome to Data Retention Policies. Security is something we take seriously. So to ensure certain data, such as personally identifiable information, or PII for short, is kept safe, let us apply a data retention policy to remove such data after a period of time. Let's say I wanted to access a contact within my system. I go into his records, and I notice that all his data is still available. Let's take a look at how this sort of information will look like after a data retention policy has taken place. Once the data retention policy has triggered, you can see that we are presented with the data expired, indicating that this contact's PII has been appropriately removed. Let us walk through setting up a data retention policy together so we can protect our client's PII by automatically removing it based on a predefined time frame. First, we must create a data retention policy. We can do so by going to our configuration menu, our global settings, our security tab, and under our data management policy section, we can have access to our data policies. There, we can modify existing policies or create a new data policy. When creating a new data policy, we can give it a name, a description, and then we can choose a policy type. In this instance, I will be selecting Data Retention Policy. Once selected, new settings are available to be configured. First, we have our action setting. This determines how we want this policy to behave. We can choose whether to just remove the data values themselves or whether we would like to remove the audit history as well. Then we have to select an entity that we would like this policy to be associated with. I will be selecting contacts as I am trying to remove their PII accordingly. Then we can choose our trigger after value and our date field to compare. This indicates the time required for this policy to remove the corresponding information. In this instance, if I were to type in 12 months and I were to compare it to their hire date, this would mean that 12 months after the contact's hire date, the corresponding data will be removed. Once these settings have been configured, we can hit save. Once saved, a Clear Processed Records Cache button is available. This allows the user to clear all cached IDs for records that have been processed under this policy. It is recommended to do so if the data linked to this policy has been changed or if the policy needs to be reapplied. Additionally, a linked policy field sets tab will be available above. Here, we can see all the policy field sets that this policy is attached to. Since we had just created this policy, let us create a new policy field set to link it to. Much like before, we can provide a name, a description, and we can match our data retention policy type. We can then choose to mask our data, and then we can also select our entity to match again, which would be contacts. Once we hit save, we are presented with 3 additional tabs above. We are also presented with the Execute Linked Policy button. The Execute Linked Policies button will allow us to trigger this policy manually. The Standard Fields and the Custom Fields tab allows us to display what fields are currently associated with this policy field set. I will go over how to link those fields to this policy field set after linking our 2 policies together. When we head over to the Linked Policies tab, we can type in our previously created policy to link it. Once typed in, I can add it in and I can save it. We have successfully linked our policy and our policy field set together. Now we can attach our policy field set with our data retention policy to a field of our choosing. In this case, because I have selected contacts as our entity for this policy field set, I can then head over to our global settings, our users, and then our standard fields. In this example, I will choose to apply our data retention policy to our first name field of our contacts. You should be applying this policy to every field you think that requires it, such as last name, email, address, etc. For now, when I head into our first name field, I can access our data category tab on the left. Here, I can apply our appropriate data retention field. Once added, we have successfully attached the field. To once again clarify, based on our earlier created policy settings, the populated data of our contact's first name field will be removed after 12 months of their hire date. That concludes today's video on data retention policies.